Hi everyone, my name's Emil Tschepp. I'm chair of the Young Members Board. We're here at One Birdcage Walk today to record a Talking Together interview with Giles Hartill, the institution's president. Thank you for joining us on Talking Together. What are your feelings going into your new term as president?
Well, firstly, it's lovely to be here talking to you, Emil. For me, this series is such a powerful series in terms of the way that the young members have set it up and the way that they've promoted it. For me, this year's just super exciting. It's just flying by, and everyone has said that it flies by, and it absolutely is flying by. But it's, one or two events a week, and yeah, loving it. It's really enjoying.
Cool. And how do you feel like, the sort of the stresses, do you feel imposter syndrome, for example?
I personally don't, and the reason that I don't is because I've always had this passion and belief that if you're good enough at what you do and you trust the people around you, then I personally don't feel the need you need to feel like an imposter in situations like this. I've always taken the opportunities as they've come along, and you grow into things, right? It's very hard when you're constantly on a learning curve. And I feel that sometimes people talk a lot about imposter syndrome, and I see it more as a growth into something rather than then being fearful of I don't deserve to be here. And I think that you can get over that quite often by trusting the people around you and supporting those around you and enabling them to be successful.
Did you often feel like people coming into positions of leadership can often put too much pressure on themselves, almost to, the feeling that they've got to hit the ground running?
People talk about pressure, don't they? And how that can tip into stress. You look at the textbooks and a lot of the thinking around this sort of in the neuroscience that's evolving around that sort of pressure performance curve. You look at sort of elite sport and how that's now being used in industry and sort of the workplace, that kind of way of thinking, that pressure performance curve, and being in that sort of peak area where you've got just enough pressure to be at sort of your peak performance, but not too much that you tip over the other side.
I guess being at our best only happens when we feel good in ourselves. Do you think the IMechE offers enough support to members and volunteers in terms of mental health, stress?
This series in itself is a fantastic initiative because what it's really doing is shining a light on mental health and well-being as a thing in society. There's a huge amount of talk about it now in the media, and the level of awareness that's being raised, which I think is really important. People's well-being is something that hasn't had a focus, and now we're in a situation where the levels of stress that people are experiencing, quite often in times of change, right? And we've had some big changes happen, globally. Periods of change tend to be when stress can be at its highest, and support for people in that kind of time, is really key. That's still not really mental health and well-being. We're not assessing people about how they are, healthy in themselves, mentally and physically, because that's not our role. But what we absolutely can be doing is supporting people to be at their best. And that is absolutely core to our strategy going forwards. How do we create the environments as a learning organization where technicians and engineers all over the world are supported in every aspect of what they need to be successful in engineering? No, I don't think we are doing enough. I think this needs to be part of the wider tool set that we provide to our members as options for them to take up. And if they want to take them up, great. And if we're providing those resources for them, and that benefits them in being at their best, because we've got huge challenges and massive opportunities to take advantage of, technicians and engineers are going to be the ones that realise those opportunities. And so the more we can do, the better, as far as I'm concerned.
So how do you plan to approach your year as president? You have a day job and a young family. How do you intend to manage the work-life balance?
Well, it's a challenge, obviously, but it's a good challenge. I feel that, and I've always been passionate about making sure that I both progress my career as an engineer, but I also have volunteered for IMechE for 20 years now, continuously, and it's always been something that I was really passionate about. You've got to be a good planner. When it comes down to it, planning your time and planning all of the things. My wife and I, we spend a huge amount of time planning our lives, probably more than most people. Time management is such a key skill for engineers, technicians, to be able to do effectively. And obviously the huge amount of support that I get, that's really fundamental to this. It doesn't happen in isolation. My company, IMechE, my family, my friends, my support network. I'm very fortunate to have a really strong support network that I can rely on, and that takes the pressure off in a lot of instances. So that balance of time management as well as having that support network is so important to me.
And that works well then? Do you, when the unexpected call from work comes up or the family, do you kind of know, you have a sense of how best to deal with it?
Well, it can be tough, can't it? Because if you look at it from the perspective of, the commitments, outside of work, I've heard people talk, and I've experienced it myself in the past, where, you need to leave at like 4:00, let's say, because to go and get the kids. Like I pick my kids up 3 days a week from nursery and school. And you might be in the middle of a really important meeting with lots of senior stakeholders, and it's that fear factor of, this meeting was due to finish at 4, or might have actually been planned to finish after 4, but I need to leave, and I'm going to stand up and walk out of this meeting. I've quite often let people know in advance, but people can still feel really awkward about doing that. So. I find that talking about it, making sure people are aware that that's what's going to happen, etc. Then things aren't a surprise. That's kind of key to it. And it's tough because people do feel like self-conscious about that.
There are lots of digital tools available. There are things like the car map. There are things like the IMechE support network. Where do you think the balance is between like the sort of the technological support and perhaps the more sort of the personal approach?
You have to have that human interaction, and one of the things that I think is so important in mental health and well-being, making sure that we are, kitting ourselves up to be effective and deal with pressures of work and life. I've always said, the digital tools that are available in terms of information sharing and making people think about some of the things that may help them adapt the way they live their lives, because fundamentally, that's what it comes down to. How do you adapt yourself to be resilient? There's some great digitals out there that can really help people, but that in isolation isn't the answer. You have to have that community around you, that support network.
So my main theme this year as chair of the Young Members Board is trying to improve our engagement with the grassroots, draw in new members, new volunteers. So what really engages you as a volunteer for the institution?
So over so many years of doing it, the prime reason from when I first started, which actually hasn't changed much since, is all about making sure that we're supporting our members. That's why we are here as an organisation. And I look back and I think, well, of all the different things I've done, whether it was when I was a young member myself, did a lot in terms of promoting STEM to school children, and then moving through the organisation and starting getting more involved in the governance, the running of the organisation, making sure we're an effective charity and membership organisation. For me, no matter what I've done, at the heart of it is being about, you look at the two things we've said really clearly now of why we exist, is being supporting our members, be great engineers and technicians, and then making sure that we are using then that expertise of our members to promote engineering, to promote innovation, to make sure that we are having a global impact in a really positive way on society and the planet at large.
Implementing a new strategy necessarily means change for some people. How do you plan to approach bringing them along, supporting them, making sure that everybody is on board with what we're trying to do?
It's taken 2-3 years. Now, most organizations would do this in, say, 6 months. They do it at a top board level, and they'd roll it out to the organization. And then what happens? Well, you get some people that will buy into it, you get some people that don't buy into it. And, if you do it quickly, more often than not, you see organizations that aren't successful in it. They rush it, they don't get the cultural buy-in, they don't get the change management part right, they don't get the communication right. The strategy is not done, it's not set in stone. We are continuing to engage and take feedback and evolve the strategy as we go forwards. And I think that is the best way of getting buy-in.
I hope you've enjoyed our discussion. For more information about the Talking Together series, please go to our website, imeche.org.